on behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight. Welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
Well, another great day for this old guy. I'm not sure if it's a great day for the young guy over there, but he's given up a few minutes to be on the show. He is Chief Master Sergeant Patrick Cohn. Did I pronounce it right, Patrick?
You absolutely did. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, and you're a recruiter, a chief. And what is it? SEL? That's a fairly new term for me. I'm an old guy, but the senior enlisted leader for a recruiting region that covers most of the world. In
Yes,
fact,
sir.
that's why you have that picture behind you, because that's pretty much your area of responsibility, right?
Yeah, just trying to show that off, Bob. I'm the senior enlisted leader for the 372nd Recruiting Group, and we cover about 4.1 million square miles. I've got about 9 squadrons underneath us, so everywhere from Milwaukee over to Omaha, Nebraska, down south to El Paso, Texas, and then everything west to include Alaska, Hawaii, Guam, Japan, and South Korea.
Wow. Now, I guess that keeps you on the road a lot.
Absolutely, it does. And especially this time of year, we're in the middle of change in command season. So we did 2 change of commands for squadrons last week. We're doing another one tomorrow. And boss and I just continuously are traveling so we can get out there and be with the people.
Yeah, well, and it can be fun. Now, you're a young man, although I've got more hair than you, just saying, okay, but mine is white. Anyway, I was in the recruiting profession to some degree for 24 of the 31 years that I served on active duty. That's as a band guy. So we worked a lot with recruiters, and I gotta say, 99% of the people that we worked with, and mostly men at the time. Surely you have women recruiting, right?
Oh, absolutely, we do.
Yeah. So, but back in my day, I can't even remember a female being a recruiter, but nonetheless, we had a lot of good times with the recruiters, and I think we made them a lot of money, and it was a PA, recruiting, band, and PA. We had the triad. I don't know if it's still the same or not, but that was pretty a lot of fun. Now, how long have you been in the Air Force?
So I've been in a total of 28 years. I started off in the Air National Guard, did that for a couple of years, and then switched over to active duty. 28 years total service. And it's kind of weird. I've got another 3 years left before higher tenure. So on paper, I'll go over 31, but it'll still be 30 years of federal service when I do retire.
Okay. And where's home? Where did you come in from?
Kansas City, Missouri. Born and raised.
You're not a
Naturally,
Chiefs
of
fan.
course, I am a Chiefs fan.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
and it's not a bandwagon, Bob. Like I've been with them through the Trent Green era and everything else. So
Yeah.
win or lose, still my team. Them and the Royals.
Yeah, okay, sure. But and we all know that the Cowboys are America's team, Patrick. Just so let's get that out. We all know that, so we won't have to argue with that anymore.
Whatever you've got to tell yourself, Bob.
Now, do you have a family? You have children and a wife, a spouse?
Yeah, absolutely. My wife, Corinne, extremely supportive of what I do. Honestly, it's because of her I'm still wearing a uniform. When we first got married, I told her I want to make Master Sergeant. I want to do 20 years. And after that, you tell me when we're done. And every time I start getting tired, I ask her if we're done. And she looks at me like I'm crazy and that I've still got work to do. So back I go.
Yeah.
And I've got one son, Austin Cohn. He's actually in the Air Force, been in for almost 8 years now.
Wow.
He is a tech school instructor for heavy equipment, payments and construction over at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Oh, okay. Well, my baby, she's 40 years old, and her family live right across the street or outside the gate of Leonard Wood over in Salem. I don't know if you know where that is. Rolla and then Salem. It's a little dinky town. I think there's 20 people in it, but hot and muggy, unlike Palm Springs where it's hot and unmuggy.
Right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. So what other AFSCs did you have then? Coming up.
So before I became a recruiter, and I've been a recruiter for 17 years, so it's almost hard to imagine not doing anything but this.
Yeah.
But my
you're
original
very
AFSC,
enthusiastic. That's probably why.
I'm extremely enthusiastic. I love what we do. But long time ago, maybe not so long for you, but in this airman's career, I started off doing heating and air conditioning, and I did that for the first 11 years. So I was a civil engineer by trade.
Oh, great. great. Well, some of my, all the airmen were always my favorite people, but I was a Fairchild. I was the senior enlisted advisor there for a couple of years. And I'll tell you, in fact, one person, Harvey, Master Sergeant Harvey, came and he was an instructor here at the NCO Academy, and I used to see him every once in a while. When I see him, I tell him, I never knew that you were assigned to Fairchild because you were never there. CE was always gone, all of them, and they did come back. What was it, 89 days or something like that? You couldn't be gone more than that or something. They come back for 3 days, and here they go back to wherever they go, wherever. So all airmen have an important job, and even more and more, I think, and especially you guys, you got to bring them in so that we can, continue the manning. How are we doing? Can you say that anything about that, Patrick? Are we doing okay with recruiting?
Absolutely, we are doing okay. And I'll kind of keep my answers in the realm of what my group is doing. Our group is doing extremely well. We've got a little over 3,000 young men and women that are just waiting to go to basic training right now. So we've been consistently meeting our goals and exceeding our goals. So yeah, we're definitely in a great place right now.
Yeah.
Now we do see there's going to be an increase in demand coming up, but the team we've got is just ready to engage and get after it.
Yeah, yeah. Why are youngsters coming in now? If I think I may have mentioned, I came in 1972. I was not a patriot. Okay, I was not. I was trying to avoid getting sent to Vietnam with the draft, and that's why I joined up. But in fact, I had this conversation with someone yesterday. The reason we come in is often different than the reason we stay. And I came in to avoid the draft, but I stayed because the people are amazing, man. And you know that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. But still, and I taught at the academy for almost 20 years, and I'll be over there tomorrow hanging out with the cadets because amazing people, man. They do amazing things. So why are the youngsters coming in? We don't have a war going on, or we're avoiding. We don't have a draft or anything. What's the main reason?
So great question, Bob. So it's a myriad of reasons as to why a young man or woman is joining right now. It could be anything just from education, could be from travel. There's a lot of different responses, but I love the point you brought up when you said sometimes what we join for and why we stay are two different. I'm a firm believer in that. I believe there's a time that you signed up to join the Air Force, and there's a time that you actually do join the Air Force. And I was no different. I joined for personal reasons. I needed something to do after high school. I knew I would have wasted money in college. I wasn't ready to just go out and be on the economy and get my own job. I wanted to have some kind of a little bit of a legacy of service and follow in my grandpa's footsteps. But it was purely personal reasons. It wasn't until later on in my career where I finally just got it and I understood why I wear this uniform and had more of a sense of pride in why I come to work. Just supervisors that mentored me and took me in and looked out for me. I went through a rough patch as a young airman, some personal issues going on, and it was starting to affect my job. But I'll never forget my first supervisor, Sergeant McGee, looking out for me and just taking me under his wing. And it was because of people like him that I finally understood why I do this. It's not just a job. This was a calling. This is something I needed to do and be a part of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad we're doing well with the numbers and all that stuff. And I think the quality of the airmen that I see on base at the academy or Peterson, wherever I go, I see a lot of airmen who are not cops at the gates at Peterson, which I always love doing that, but I don't know if they love doing it or not. But they're always professional, regardless of what their little badge is, and I think that's a good thing. I think we're on the right track and we're in good hands. As far as the chief, what do you think? What's the catalyst that made you? You just mentioned it hit you eventually. Did it ever hit you? Has it hit you already? That man, you're a chief, which is pretty cool. And back in the day, we all wanted to be a chief because we got the first parking spot at the BX, and they don't do that no more. I don't think. I know at the academy there is no parking spot because I could use it. My knees would appreciate it. But anyway, was there a time, someplace that you said, "Man, I'm a chief"? I don't know. To me, and I was just reminiscing the other day, the day that I came in as a chief, and it was no different because I was being a chief all this time, before, because I was being primed for it. And, I just had an extra stripe on. Did that hit you? Was there a significant emotional experience or anything?
Really, for me, it was my promotion ceremony that I had, and not so much me putting the stripe on, but I was also able to inform my son that he got selected for staff sergeant at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
that was that moment that I had reached out to his command, talked to his SEL and his commander, and they gave me the opportunity to inform him. They delegated that down to me. So during my ceremony, I was able to announce to him, bring him up, give him stripes,
Oh, cool.
tacked him on a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was really that moment for me, is I knew I was coming into this role of being an SEL and putting on chief stripes and having that first interaction, even though it was for my son, but having the trust from his commander to make that notification was just powerful. Everything else just kind of it fell into place. Like you do notice when you show up at a new unit and you're the SEL that people pay a little bit more attention to what you're saying. They hang on your words a little more. So I think as we grow into this role, we realize that the power of our words, and we kind of temper expectations a little bit. But for me, it was never about being a chief. You think back, I started off with, I just wanted to make master sergeant, do 20 years. That was where I was. And just through opportunities I've been afforded with work ethic and great leaders helping me along the way, I managed to step into this role.
Yeah, yeah. And how long have you been a chief?
Oh, wow. I've been a chief for going on 6 years now.
6 years? Okay. Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
congratulations. Kind of belated, but congratulations. I'm sure it's well deserved. And you
Thank
made
you.
it in recruiting.
I did.
Which is, if I remember, back in the day, it was very, very difficult to do that. Is it still pretty tough, or or
It's
are they
not
just
easy.
giving them away?
Well, they're definitely not just giving them away. So it's still difficult, but it's attainable. I get asked, and you probably did the same. Hey, chief, how do I make chief?
Yeah.
And this sparks great conversation with, well, how do you get to that rank? I don't think there's one set roadmap that everybody can follow and make it. Like, we all had a different path on how we got here. But the one thing I think we all had in common is we focused on being the best airman at the job that we were currently assigned. We weren't so much worried about what's next or what that next stripe looks like. We may have thought about it and dreamed about it a little bit, but we had to stay focused on what we were currently doing, trying to be the best version of ourselves at that assignment, or else this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Now, with all due respect, I've heard from many young chiefs, and especially the ones that are just retiring or just did retire, that doesn't happen so much anymore. That people are just so focused on making that last stripe that and I always say that the reason I made chief was because I took care of my people. You're right. Just like you, I was going to be glad if I made master sergeant, but the most important thing was I was going to take care of my people. It didn't matter what. I took all the hits that I had to, and it just came that the stripes came. But nowadays, Patrick, some of the, like I said, there's still young chiefs who are just leaving, saying, that doesn't happen anymore. The chiefs are not so concerned about taking care of their people as they are taking care of themselves. Now, and again, not everybody, but do you see that throughout the force, or are they maybe not maybe they're not catching the whole thing?
Sure. So I can't speak on other people's experiences, but I can definitely tell you from my perspective. As I'm making recommendations up to senior raters for stratification to chief, the ones that are in it for themselves, their records speak to that. You can tell by evaluating an airman's record to see, are they focused on developing others, or are they just focused on me, me, me? There comes a point in a career where it's not about you anymore, and it is about that team. And typically we look for that about the E7 level. Once you make master sergeant, it is about developing airmen, not developing yourself per se. We shouldn't be out chasing awards or just doing it to get the next stripe.
Right.
But from my experience, yeah, I can see through that when I'm reviewing packages and I'm making recommendations to senior raters for strats.
Yeah. Now, what if there's one thing that you would like to warn the chiefs, the new chiefs especially, not to do, what would you tell them? Don't do that. Other than that, other than being for yourself and not for your airmen, what else is there? Do you think good advice for a young chief?
There's so much good advice for new chiefs, but one of the first things that I try to remind them is, you're stepping into an SEL. Well, yeah, you're literally the only person in a squadron that has nothing to lose. You can have those direct conversations with your commander. You don't have to worry about how you're being looked at, whether you're going to be considered for the next stripe, because there is no more stripe. You need to be able to give that direct feedback and sometimes pull a commander to the side and just be honest. Close the door, have those conversations that you need to have. But at the same time, don't forget you're there for your airmen. You're not there just to be with the commander. You're not the commander's chief. You're the airman's chief. And you need to understand what your people are going through so you can advocate on their behalf appropriately.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. You're not just the general, the colonels, whoever the boss is, their chief. You are for everybody else. Well, one of my favorite mentors back in 100 years ago told me that the only way to be an effective chief is to be willing to get your butt chewed at least once a week. And I always excel. So I got my when I came into the Air Force, my butt was huge and not so much anymore. But and so that's the maybe the warning part. So on the positive part, Patrick, what can you tell a chief? Go do this, man. Do this every day.
Go see your airmen as much as possible. If you're in a traditional unit, you can walk down the hallway or walk over to the hangar. Go see what your airmen are doing and have them show you what their job is. Even if you know how to do their job, let them show you, let them impress you, let them show off what they've learned and how good they truly are. If you're in a unit like recruiting where we're dispersed, get in your car, go out there and go see your airmen. It's the same. There's only about this much work, very small amount that you need to do from behind your desk.
Yeah.
Because if you stay there, you're not going to see what your airmen are doing. You're not going to be able to advocate, and they're not going to trust you.
Yeah. Well, no, and let me give you a tip, and our listeners a tip. Dave Campanelli, you've heard of him. Good friend of mine. When he's the one that made me go be a senior enlisted advisor at Fairchild, and he told me get a map of the base that's got all the buildings in there, and start wherever you want to start, but make sure that you go to every building while you're there. If you're there 2 years, and I did exactly that, and I ended up going through the whole thing twice. But and especially now, Patrick, you've got so much going on. I don't think it's old age. Maybe it's the altitude, but I forget. Was I here? When was I here? So that's I think, a great tool to have that map that, hey, I've been there a couple of times on these dates and all that stuff. And that way you make sure that you can see all of your people. Otherwise, and I think the worst thing is to not ever see a certain group, even if it's not intentional. The worst thing is for a youngster to tell you, hey, you never came to visit. Whoa, that was not intentional. Too bad.
Absolutely.
Too bad. The effect is already there. So what's been the best thing about being a chief? Other than the parking lot, other than the parking space
really, it's having a seat at the table. It's being able to, and especially now being up at the group level, being able to see a little bit more of what the strategic vision is, understanding where my squadron level assets are, and being able to merge the two. So taking that strategic message, translating it down so the subordinate units understand a little bit, and getting that commander's intent to go with it. But just being able to be an advocate for my airmen, I feel like this is really where I need to be. This aligns a lot with my personality, and fingers crossed, those that I work with are thinking I'm doing a good job with it. But this is really, I feel, one of the most important areas we can be at, especially as chiefs. It's one thing to have a strategic vision, but it's another thing to put it down into actionable execution type orders.
Yeah. And as you've been a leader for a long time. People will do what you do, not what you say. So you can tell them to do whatever it is. If they see you doing the opposite, they're going to do the opposite. which is not a good, sometimes not a good thing. So, we always, in fact, you mentioned that you can't lead from a desk, but when you have such an expansive group that reports to you, Chief, I mean, there's the electronics, right? I mean, that's a good tool to have, not to abuse, because we all, we can abuse it. My bride tells me, put that phone down. And I do, because we've been married 48 wonderful and fulfilling years. And this is the trick. That's it. Smile and nod. That'll do it. But nonetheless, I imagine that you stay connected with a lot of people electronically, with them being all over the world, or half the world.
Absolutely. We're tons of meetings that we're doing on Teams, so we're seeing command teams face to face through the screen at least. And then I've got certain senior enlisted leaders with different squadrons that I'll reach out to via text quite often, or phone call. But nothing replaces that face-to-face interpersonal communication. And my boss shares the same philosophy I do, that we need to be in the field. We need to be visible. I need to be able to help a commander just be a vector for their organization. I can go out and observe, and I can then give them feedback after I've observed something, especially in a recruiting environment where even at the squadron level, they are geographically dispersed. Yeah. So their command team may not be able to get out to all their airmen all the time. So I just try to assist them the best I can, and be present and be a vector for them.
Yeah. Wow. Chief Bob Gaylor, I know you know him, a wonderful man. Okay. We all loved him very much, a lot. He taught me that high tech will never replace high touch. There's something about, actually, I hope that one day, not in Palm Springs, it's too stinking hot, but I hope that we meet up some place, Chief, and I can shake your hand, because there's this spirit, I think, that we exude, that's physical, and when you see each other physically, it's like, wow, that was better than being on Zoom or whatever it is. So, but are you staying in recruiting, or can you stay? You said what, 16 years? You've been doing 17 years?
17 years in recruiting, and yeah, yes, sir. I will stay in recruiting until I hire tenure out. So, okay. As long as they've got a spot for me and they want to keep me on, I've got another 3 years left before that point happens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you could always go back to CE. I mean, we need people that know how to work a shovel.
I appreciate that.
That was a long time ago, right, brother? Way long.
Very long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for taking the time to be on this show. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to be anxious to listen to you and gain from your experience. So you keep us posted, man, whenever you do have a ceremony, because and nowadays we do it electronically. I just had one Saturday, and that was pretty cool to be there, but not to have to travel there. One day you'll understand, man. All that traveling that you're doing, it'll get to you.
Absolutely.
Another 10 years or so, you're going to say, oh, man, I don't want to sit here for another 3 hours while this airplane gets to wherever. But see, I always hoped that Scotty would beam me there, and he sticking died, man, so I don't know. Maybe there's a new Scotty coming up, and we can beam each other. So thank you so much, brother. Absolutely. God bless you, and you take care of yourself. Stay enthusiastic.
Absolutely, Bob. And thank you for having me on this. This is definitely my pleasure. I'm glad I got to spend a little bit of time with you today.
God bless you, brother.
All right. Take care, sir.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you've gained something from this episode that will empower you to become a more effective leader. If you'd like to connect with us, please do so via our website at leadershipandforesight.org. The book So You Want to Be the Chief is available on Amazon.com and on Apple Books. This podcast is powered by the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight.